your resumes. And so John and I talked over the summer, Father Serby and I talked, and we talked about 30 or 35 different topics that I could cover on the subject. And we can't cover, obviously, all those topics, networking, so your social media, your personal marketing profile online, etc. So we just kind of narrowed it down to what are the really most important things you need to get a job. How many here are interested in getting a job after college? There may be only one in the audience that is not interested. But what I wanted to do first was kind of tell you a little bit. First of all, a little bit about me, so kind of where I'm coming from. So right out of college, I went in the federal government. So I worked for, at the time, U.S. Customs Service. Today it's U.S. Customs and Border Protection. I worked there for about 30 years, and I was a port director in Norfolk, and led the field operations for the whole port of Norfolk. And I was assistant commissioner for public affairs, handled all the communications for customs on 9/11. Subsequent to that, then I moved on and helped to start the Department of Homeland Security. So I literally turned the lights on day one at DHS and helped to stand it up and create all the communication protocols, the incident response capabilities in the department. And then I left and I joined Booz Allen Hamilton. Anybody here Booz Allen? Anybody thinking about a career in consulting? And I spent about 6 years there, and I had about a 75-person team doing all consulting work with Homeland Security and Department of Justice. And that's where I really learned about interviewing mistakes, and about resume mistakes, and about social media mistakes. And talking to people and going through the interviews for entry-level consulting work. And then I left there and I've started my own consulting business. So I currently am just me, myself, and I have my own business, and I do consulting into the federal government, back into DHS. I have several clients at DHS, and I also have Small Business Administration. I'm helping them do some reorganization as well. My personal skill sets right now are change management, communications, strategic communications, marketing, government relations, and really understanding Homeland Security. People just don't understand it, and bringing some new capabilities in on how to take these capabilities and actually integrate them into the mission support for Homeland Security. So that's me. And so what we want to do today is talk about, this thing is acting up on me a little bit. Okay, the three topics we're going to cover tonight are resume basics, your personal marketing plan, and something most people don't even think about. It's the first thing I tell people to do. And then some just tips, interview basics, some tips for doing an interview for a job. So those are the three topics I'm going to cover tonight. And this is acting funky at me. So we're going to start with a little role play. On your tables or chairs are 3x5 cards and pencils. And I want each of you to take a 3x5 card and a pencil. And here's what we're going to do. So here's the situation. You are graduating from George Mason and you're interested in an entry-level job as a consultant with Booz Allen Hamilton. And you're coming in to be interviewed by me. So I'm the interviewer for your entry-level job. I want you to write down 3 things right now that you want me to know about you. It could be anything. Just off the top of your mind, just write 3 things you think are important for me to know about you to get this job. Just take about 2 minutes. This is a real quick exercise. No cheating. Oh. 30 seconds more. This is the easy test. All right, how about pencils down? I think we got enough on there. Now, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. First of all, how many people wrote down something about your education? Okay, how many wrote down something about a particular skill that you have that you can bring to the job? Okay, how many people wrote about a past job that you had? Okay, how many wrote about something about your character? Whoa, now that's impressive. Most people I talk to do not think about writing down something about your character. Somebody, whoever wrote about your character, just give me, shout it out. Just tell me one thing about yourself, your character.
I am a very social extrovert.
A social extrovert. It's good, excellent. Anybody write anything down about an alternative spring break that you've done? Anybody write down anything about volunteering that you've done? Couple. Anybody write things down like I do piano lessons? I teach piano lessons to kids. Anybody in here do that? Anybody teach music lessons to kids? Okay. How many people volunteer in here to do something? You're part of this. You're part of this community. You volunteer. The thing that people forget to put on their resumes is something, your character has to come out. And when I'm interviewing someone for a job, I am more interested in who you are and what you've done and what's your character. How do you solve problems? What have you done to contribute? Than the lifeguard job that you had, or stocking shelves at a shoe store. Because that's what you see. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I stock shelves in the shoe store. I'm like, so, and why does that help you get your job? So basically a resume, it's got to, first of all, it's got to get you noticed. That's the whole point of your resume, is to get you noticed. And today, you have to speak not just to your skills and experience, but to your character. Because people are really looking at who you are, how you fit into my culture. Why should I hire you into my organization? What are you going to contribute that the other person sitting outside waiting for the interview isn't going to contribute? They're looking for that. So make sure you put down your skills. Education counts. How many here were Eagle Scouts? Okay. My oldest son was an Eagle Scout, and you probably heard it in your court of honor. You're a marked person. You put down Eagle Scout on your resume. It says a lot about your character. The problem is when you walk in the door, there's no higher expectation. So you're a marked person. You know, that's the good news and the bad news. But the expectation's higher because it speaks to your character. So don't leave things like that off of your resume. The other thing is your relevant experience. So everybody, you got to think about the job you're looking for. What's the experience that relates to that job? If it's a lifeguard, put down lifeguard. But it's more about saving lives, preparing, being prepared, being watchful, monitoring things, working with other people. All of those are important, but really your character is the thing that has to jump off the page. And when I'm interviewing you, I'm going to ask you more about your character and your problem-solving skills than I am going to ask you about the jobs you did. I'll assume you have skills. If not, we can teach you, but I can't teach you about character. The second part of getting a job is, what's your strategy for getting a job? So the strategy is your personal marketing plan. And the personal marketing plan is, John, did you put these out on the tables? John?
No, not yet.
You didn't yet? Okay. So we'll have examples. I can pass these around right now. But, sure. So one of them is a sample. It's my actual resume as well as my personal marketing plan. The resume is everything looking backwards. So you ever drive a car in reverse? You can't go very fast. You can't really see everywhere you're going. It's distorted. But your resume is backward looking. It's here's what I've done in my life. Your personal marketing plan is more forward looking. So it's your roadmap. How do I get my job? So the personal marketing plan is really about what are you looking to do? So what skills have you developed? What education have you got? What was your major? What are the things you're good at? Then you need to start looking at, well, who does that? And you have to identify what companies are actually doing work in that area. And that's going to take some research on your part. So you have to figure out who's doing it. Are they located in a place that you want to live? I mean, your geographic location is really important. You know, if you want to stay in this area, it's great for working with government, consulting, but it may be something that you want to do, you know, with, advanced vehicles, you know, which is all going on in California and the desert. But you really have to know where that work is being done. And most importantly, do you know somebody who already works there? So your personal marketing plan, and we've got copies to hand out, John's handing them out now. I just brought these documents for you so you could get an idea of how to kind of frame your resume, what are people looking for, how's it organized, and then your personal marketing plan. So you're thinking about where you want to go, what you want to do, who does that. Then another topic I wanted to cover, probably not going to have time tonight to do it, is using LinkedIn. So how many here are active on LinkedIn? Okay, how many here are active on Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter? Okay, Twitter, Facebook, all of those networking platforms are really great for socializing, being with your friends, but if you want a job, you need to be on LinkedIn. That is where 90% of the jobs today are being selected from, and you need to get your personal profile, start developing a personal profile on LinkedIn, and it starts building your experience and your network. Why is it important? Because most jobs are from personal links, personal connections that you have with somebody at a particular company. And you can find that out in a hot second by going to LinkedIn. I didn't know that person worked there. Let me send them an email. Here's my resume. Would you be interested in forwarding my resume to the right hiring manager? So knowing someone on the inside is the best way to get a job at that organization. I'll tell you, and there's also an incentive for that person. In Booz Allen, they will pay you $1,500 if you bring somebody in who's hired by the organization. So there's an incentive for somebody you know to get, they're gonna get $1,500 just for referring you in. So, I mean, knowing how to do that, knowing LinkedIn. So great that you've got the social media networks, you're very active today on that. But LinkedIn is the place you need to be if you want to get a job in the future. So personal marketing plan. Any questions? I mean, feel free to interrupt me here. Yes?
LinkedIn, would you recommend a professional photographer to take it? Because I attended this event where they were talking about LinkedIn and how we can sign up, but they had a professional photographer there to take, you know, HD quality like photos, like you're like supermodels or something. Like, yeah,
I mean, if you can, that's great. It doesn't have to be. I mean, I've seen people taking pictures, you know, from their right at their desk, and it looks horrible. But you know, it's more about the information. I have one friend of mine who works in the intelligence community, and he took his LinkedIn profile as the back of his bald head. Very similar to mine, actually. You know, so, and he has a fictitious name. You have to know what his fictitious name is to know. But I'm LinkedIn with him. But you know, but he's in the intelligence community. But he wanted to be on LinkedIn, so that's how he did it. So, but it is important. I mean, fine if you want to make yourself look as professional as possible. It doesn't have to be a professional picture. Just be a nice picture with your iPhone. I mean, that's just all you need to do. Any other questions right now? Yes.
I was always told for resume for
Right.
So when do you show the resume?
Well, the marketing plan is more for you. Now, I mean, if you want to share that with somebody who's a close friend of yours, here's what I'm thinking about, what do you think? But that's your roadmap. That's your personal roadmap to say, here's what it's more about stopping and thinking about how I want to go after a job. What job do I really want? Where is it at? Who does what I love to do? And do I know anybody there? And then you just go and then you pursue it. And I'll tell you something, be persistent. A lot of times you'll go in for an interview and they'll interview you and say, sorry, you didn't get the job. But it was for that job. There may be another job that comes up 2 weeks later and you happen to be persistent and say, you know, I'm interested in anything else. I looked at your website, I saw this other job, I'm really interested in that. If you impress them in the interview, it may just not have been a fit for that particular job. And you know, if they're impressed with you, and I've seen that, where people come back 2 and 3 times, and the third time was the charm. So don't take no as a barrier. Take no as a learning experience and move forward. So the marketing plan is really your own roadmap. But without it, where do you go? Where do I start? That's a good place to start. Other questions? Okay. Let's assume that you got the interview. Okay, your resume resonated with them, you got somebody referred you in, and you got the interview. What do you do next? How do you prepare for that interview? So this is a little dense, sorry for all the words. I hate wordy PowerPoint slides, but fortunately, it's the only way to get this much information out. So the first thing you want to do, you want to know as much about the company as possible. The worst thing I ever heard from an interviewer, what do you do? Why are you here? My next question. Why are you, if you don't know what I do and what our company does, why are you even sitting in front of me? So do your research and make sure in the interview that they know you did your research. I was so impressed by people who would come to me and said, well, I saw this on your website. Can you tell me, they're interviewing me, can you tell me more about this? Because I'm really interested in that. Oh, okay. So it told me a lot that that person cared enough about this job that they went out and did the research and did their homework to try to figure out what we were doing. Do your interview about the job. Know what the job is that you're pursuing, and look at the job, the position description, read it, try to understand it, and then you have questions that you can formulate from that. Third, know the interviewer. I mean, in today's world, you can Google anybody and you can find out as much about them, more about them than you care to know. Oh, I see you like golf. Okay, so hey, I see you like golf. I love golf. Trust me, some of that, you just to lighten the mood, to lighten it up. You can tell them about your personal life, but it says, again, I did my homework on you. Come with your own list of questions. This is a trick that I told I have 3 sons, all of them got the jobs they're looking for. So I said, make sure you go in with your list of questions. So write down 10 questions. And when you're in your interview, make sure it's sitting right in front of you. So it's very visible. This is a great trick that very few people do. So write your questions, because you're always going to get asked the question, do you have any questions for me? Because they want to know that, okay, do you have any questions of me? And you pause strategically, and you said, let me see. and you literally look at your, yes, I do. And you read one of your questions, because they're not going to ask you all 10 questions. You read one of your questions, and you ask the question. Oh, okay. And I do have another question if I have time. And you ask them a second question. The fact that you actually prepared questions will blow the interviewer away. And it worked like I told my boy, I said, that came out of the interview, did you have your list of questions? Yes, I did. Did you use it? Oh, yes, I did. So, did you get the job? Yes, I did. So I'm just telling you, it's a little trick that will impress people when you're doing an interview. Openly refer to them. The other thing, and I kind of mentioned it, you're interviewing them. It's not a one-way street. The interview is two-way. Do I really want to work here? Ask about the culture. Ask about opportunities to volunteer. I wouldn't ask at the interview for initial entry job, opportunities for advancement, or how much time off do I get? I mean, you don't want to ask that question, but I've seen you do volunteer things. What kind of opportunities, how is that encouraged? So you ask those types of questions so that they can see that you're interested in that. The other thing is anticipate standard questions you will get in an interview. So the first one, why do you want this job? Okay, you might even think about that, but if you put some cycles thinking through, why do I really want this job? And you write down, why do I really want this job? You'll be so prepared for that answer. You're going to nail it. You'll have it memorized and internalized, and you'll nail it. So that's why I want the job. You'll say, ooh, they really want the job. Again, it's showing an element of your character that you care, and you really prepared yourself. They're going to ask you things like, what do you offer to us that somebody else out of George Mason or another school doesn't offer us? What do you offer that's special to our company? And then the one thing I'd love to ask, And you've seen this in spades. In all your alternative spring breaks and all the work you do in the community, what was a particularly hard challenge that you had, that you were faced with, and how did you confront with it? How did you deal with it? And frankly, this is where our faith comes in. Because when you start looking at challenges in your life and how you did it, how you dealt with it, a lot of times you go back to those core principles that you learned here. You learn in your faith, the things that you believe, and it gives you the right answer. How do you answer that? You answer it from a faith-centered perspective. And to me, when you ask about challenges and how you dealt with them, when you come at that, you come out with a peacefulness that will be very impressive to anybody interviewing. So don't forget that. The things you're doing right now are centering you for how you deal with challenges in the future, and then it makes it easier to articulate that in the middle of an interview. And lastly, let your character come through. Smile. You know how frustrating it is when you're sitting there interviewing somebody? They're rock solid. Lighten up. Just lighten up. I won't bite you. But, and then talk about ways or things you did to improve things wherever you were last. They're going to ask you too, if you're leaving a job, to come to them. Why are you leaving the job? For you guys, it's probably not going to be that difficult because most of you, it'll be your first real career opportunity. So you're going into your first career job. This is a field I've worked my whole life to prepare myself to come to a job like this. And I really think you're a good fit for me. Okay, that's pretty good. That's a good answer for me. So questions about interviews. It's a lot to absorb. I added this slide to the handouts just so you had it. There's a little cheat sheet for you. But what questions do you have about interviews? Because this is one of the biggest areas that we're really going to have to polish and practice. Practice. Role play with a friend. Questions about interviews? Yep.
Do they not already know tricks of the trade? Like it would read you when you say, oh, that's but you don't have they know that, oh, someone will be doing this, that's not questions, honest, but they don't.
No, most of them won't. I mean, it just shows that you're prepared. You prepared for the interview, and you got your questions. Okay. Now, I will tell you this. So there's two different types of interviews, and for entry level, you're more likely to get the former way. That's what we call speed dating. And we would bring in maybe 20 people. And we'd set up tables in a big room, and we'd have a person sitting at each table. And you would be assigned 10 minutes to go hop from table to table to table, so that you would eventually be, and it was all scheduled, so you would eventually be interviewed by 3 people. So you would go and you basically have a real quick 10-minute interview with 3 different people, and a little social when it's done, and then everybody leaves, all the interviewers sit down together at a table, and we would go through, okay, this person, here's the resume, what have we done? Okay, who interviewed them, what do you know? And we go through and we make the hiring decision right there. Hire them or not. So right at the end of the interview, it was done, you were getting a letter within 2 or 3 days after the interview. That's the way we did entry-level interviews at Booz when I was there. The other way is one-on-one. When you just go in, it's a one-on-one interview. And you may have multiple interviews. When I interviewed to go work at Booz, I had 12 different interviews. So I had to run the gauntlet of interviews. I was being hired at a fairly high level, but I was interviewed at lunches. I had to travel out to Reston. I had to go to different places. I had 12 interviews before I got the job. So, I mean, you'll have those 2 different scenarios, so be prepared for either one.
I know that there are certain volunteer and internship opportunities that I would have to apply and interview for. Do these also apply to those, or is there a different set of rules or tips that you can share for those?
Same rules. I mean, if even for an internship, and that's an area that John and I have talked a lot about. I've already talked to some friends of mine who are in positions where they would hire internships, and they're very interested. And I said I was going to be doing this. I said, one place, financial institution, you got somebody interested in finance, I'm interested in interns. So happy to talk to anybody you refer to me. Somebody else, AARP, if you're interested in marketing. So, the head of marketing for AARP is a very good friend. She's already said, I'm interested in, any interns you could refer to me. So, but the interview process is still going to be the same. It's just, it may be paid. I've got a whole, actually, let me jump to that real quick, because the next slide is other topics, and on there is internships. So, are they worth it? Yes, if you can get a good one. I was just talking at our table earlier. When I was in the government, I was very disappointed how internees were treated. I mean, it was go, copy this. I mean, because in the government, your hair is on fire. I call it, managing by inbox. All you can do is what's in front of you today, and particularly in Homeland Security. I mean, your life was not your own. So, I mean, it was very hard to have an intern in that circumstance. Out of government, when I was at Booz Allen, I tell you, I had some great interns work for me, and at the end of the summer, I mean, he worked for me for the summer for 2 months, and I offered him a job right there. The guy was so good, and I said, "You interested in a permanent job?" And within 1 week, he got a job, got engaged, and bought a house. So he now left Booz, he's now working for a 3-letter agency. So they really do work if you get into the right circumstance. Any big consulting firm, great opportunity for an internship. So it depends on the organization you're going to, but they're definitely worth it. The other thing is, are they paid? Some are, some are not. Usually they pay at a fairly low wage because you're getting a lot of benefit out of that and you're able to put it on your resume. When should you apply? I'll tell you what, if you want an internship next summer at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Booz Allen, Deloitte, any of the big consulting firms, you're probably already late. They're doing that in September, the beginning of the school year. They have certain schools that they like to go to. So they'll go to Wharton, they'll go down to Virginia, UVA, they'll go to business schools, they'll look at graduates. So they're looking at that for interns, but it doesn't close the door on you. But right now is the time for next year to be looking for internships in any large consulting firm like that. And then the other thing is the internship, network, LinkedIn. Who do I know working there? Does one of my parents know somebody working there? I had referrals all the time from parents, people I worked with, that either their kids or friends of theirs said, "Would you take a look at the resume for an internship?" It's all the network. So make sure you're doing that network, doing your homework on that. So these are some other topics. Virtual networking, we talked a little bit about that. You've got to build your online persona and make sure that what you do on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and everything else that you're on, make sure that you can live with that 20 years from now. Whatever you're doing today and you're looking for a job 20 years from now, make sure you can live with whatever you did today, because it's still going to reside on the internet 20 years from now, if they can find out. So that's my only word of caution, but the positive is you can tell a lot about yourself, and it's a very positive. You could Google me, do Dennis Murphy, Homeland Security. My mother said, "My gosh, there's 3 pages." I was a spokesman for the department, so I was out there a lot. So you'll find a lot about me there. And it's still there. I mean, I haven't been there for 12 years, 15 years. So your personal brand, so who are you? I mean, you have a personal brand, whether you know it or not. So it's who you are, who's your character, who you hang out with, what are the things you're known for. And that's what your personal brand is. What are you known for? And so get known for things. And when you're in the workplace, get known for doing your work without, rocking the boat. Just do the work, get known for, as I put it, good delivery, good client delivery. And if you do anything else, you're going to be known for as a good client delivery person, your career will soar. So just be known for doing great work, being timely. One big thing that is a big problem with many people is they're not responsive. So if somebody reaches out to you and says, can you help me with X? If you just let it languish for 2 or 3 days, you're saying more to that person that I don't care about your problem. They're asking for help. So when I was, again, in consulting, I mean, the number one thing was, is that person responsive? If you reach out, you better be responding back. Now, some people did it at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would wake up and see email chains going back and forth at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, stop that. There's no expectation of response at 3 o'clock in the morning, period. Well, they're up with their kids or whatever, and they happen to be online. But be responsive and be known for delivery. In-person networking, networking never stops. You need to always be networking, whether you're on the job, at your workplace, in your school, in your community, be networking. Be known so that you have friends, and that network will pay dividends to you. Anyway, these are other topics. We can dive into these. One of the things that I did offer to John is please take a look at the resumes that I passed out. These are just a good template for you to follow. The personal marketing plan and the interview tips. But I did offer, if anyone's interested, to do one-on-one counseling. So, I said maybe after 11 o'clock mass on Sundays, I could spend an extra hour or two here and going through and helping you with the resume and things like that. So I'm happy to sit here and do that if anyone's interested. If you're interested in internships, I'm doing that. John's, I think, is going to put together a sign-up sheet. So if there's things you are interested, we can come back and do this more. We can do it one-on-one or small groups. Happy to help you, but you've got to get these right. These are the fundamental things for getting a job, is to be able to write a good resume, present yourself well, have a plan for what you want to do and when you want to do it, and then be able to go out and to be and do an interview, knock the interview out, so that when you get that interview, they remember you. Other questions? I want to be respectful of your time on any of these topics. Yes?
You had mentioned anticipating interview questions, and one that I know I've gotten a lot has to do with, like, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? What, from your experience, is like the best weakness to say?
There's a technique in communications called block and bridge, and so I used to do media training for people, did a lot of 60 minutes interviews, and you never want to answer the negative question. So you always say, that's a great question. Can I reframe that? I mean, it's not really a weakness per se, but it's something that I've been working on. It's a personal challenge of mine, and it's, it could be anything. Pick your least weak topic. But you don't want to run yourself, oh man, I have so much trouble getting to work on time, and it's a real weakness, and I'm not a morning person. No. So make it a real simple thing. So, well, I wish I only worked, 2 extra hours a day instead of 3. That's a real weakness of mine. I'm putting in 12-hour days instead of 14. I shouldn't put in 12-hour days anymore. I know I shouldn't do that. So, you take a strength and flip it, make it a weakness. So, but be prepared for that, because they will ask that. Other questions? Anything? Yes?
I know that scholarships are really good in someone's characteristics on college, it's really hard to get.
Mhm.
And they want to do, so do you have any tips for success with possibly college?
For scholarships? Well, I mean, it depends on what it's for, too. I mean, a scholarship because you had good grades, okay, that's good. But a scholarship for community service. I mean, there's different scholarships. I mean, so something you received a scholarship from, the Rotary, for instance, for, as a person, most likely, to contribute to the community, or something like that, or for something other than academic excellence. Those really resonate. So, I use the Eagle Scout example. I mean, anything like that, that isn't instantly recognized, something about, I did more, I went above and beyond. And to me, that says, it speaks to your character, which is what it should. The scholarship speaks to your character. So something more than grades. I don't want to know what your GPA is at school. I don't want to know that. If you're an honor student, that's great. Honor student says you've got, you're smart and you're persistent. Okay, so that's 2 good things. I worked with some kids that were coming out of military, and it always sticks in my mind, this really young fella, he's a father, and he says, I don't have any skills. I said, what do you mean you don't have any skills? He says, I was trained to shoot a 50 caliber machine gun. That's it. You know, that's all I know how to do is shoot a 50 caliber machine gun. And I had to start pulling out of him, well, there's more than just you on the team, right? He said, right, so there's teamwork. Did you ever have to jump in and lead? Oh yeah, I did this. And so I said, well, put that down. It's not about shooting a gun. It's all about what you did as a team, your people, you're interacting with people, and you're doing things together as a group that you have to show leadership and teamwork. And those are the things that are going to resonate. You're not shooting a gun, so sometimes you tend to forget. I stock the shelves with shoes. It always sticks in my mind because that, okay, what does that have to do with being a consultant? And I actually had to draw out of this person, tell me about stocking the shoes. Were you independent? Were you having to do this independently without someone telling you what to do? Okay, that's telling me something about yourself. So those are the kind of things. Pull the details out and put that on your resume. So, other questions? Yes?
About like the grades thing, like I hiring manager from the place where I volunteer was telling me like see skip degrees and like you don't care about their GPA. In fact, like they put it on there, that's like pompous and like so. I just wanted a second opinion. Like, is that true? Like people don't care?
It's not that you don't care. I mean, yes, they care. Grades do count. But what do you call the person who graduates last in the class at medical school? Doctor. You went through the rigorous process to achieve something, and you were recognized by the institution that you achieved it. This says, I'm prepared to do what I studied in. I am prepared. They're certifying that you are prepared. Now, getting a 4.0, it's great. You should have an academic recognition that goes with the grades. And that, summa cum laude. I mean, okay, great, put that in. That says something. Or I know that there are scholarship fraternities and sororities, and you put that in. So that's important. I'm not saying grades aren't great, but it's not the end-all be-all. Right? The grade's not the end-all be-all to getting a job or who you are or the window into your character. They're important. I'm not gonna, I spend plenty of time with my own kids. Why are you going to get a 2.5? But you can do better. It's because I know that they're capable of doing better, and they should have done better. But in the end, they're independent and happy. And to me, as a parent, that's really all I care about. Are you happy in what you're doing? Are you happy in your life? Are you on your own, independent, living life the way you want to live it? To me, that's the end. And you're a principled person. You're grounded in good principles. And you're grounding your faith. And that's where it all starts. John?
Are there things besides a person's qualifications, so besides the content of what they say on their resume, that are kind of an automatic, I don't want to look at that, or, oh, hey, check that out? Is there a too short or a too long? Or is there something about formatting that says, I want to look at this one, or like, I'm not even going to bother with this one?
Well, if you notice, mine's only 2 pages. Now that's 30 plus years of a career that I've distilled into 2 pages. I really didn't want to read more. It's not a curriculum vitae where it's everything I published. I didn't mention that. If you're published or you've written papers or things like that, make sure you have that included, because that's something that they can look up and read about your scholarship. But the curriculum vitae, I've seen 5, 6, 7 page long that lists every single thing that everybody's done. I'm like, who's going to read that? I'm certainly not going to read it. Great, you did a lot of stuff. Thank you very much. 2 pages, hit the highlights. As far as things that aren't, I don't know. I'm always positive. And Murphy was an optimist, and I always look at, if it's a negative, how do I make it a positive on my resume? Did you get fired from a job? Well, you can say, if they said, did you ever get fired from a job? You need to be honest. Okay, yes, but let me tell you the circumstances. And it could have been a problem with the company. It could have been something that they were doing And I totally disagreed with it because I thought it was absolutely wrong. They were cheating people, they were lying, they were doing things that I couldn't stand. And I left before, I would be caught up in that. I couldn't do anything inside, so I left rather than be caught up in what they were doing because I thought it was illegal and immoral. So that really answers your question, but keep your principles. And there is faith in the workplace. I never went into a big meeting where I didn't say a prayer before I went into the meeting, so it never leaves you. It should never leave you. It's always a part of what you do. So, I know we're almost at time, but yes, I did go
Talk
ahead.
about wardrobe, like what to wear to interviews and stuff like that.
Two things on that. Always dress. I mean, you can look online and see how people dress, in pictures from the company. The government always wear a suit and tie. If you're going to the government, I always still go to clients, wear a suit and tie. Most consulting firms, you should dress appropriately. I would recommend suits or sport jackets at least for men, and a nice dress, business dress for women. So always dress up for the interview. Dress higher than you think you need to. When you're at work there, you'll learn pretty quickly the culture, how people dress, and most places now it's fairly casual, like I'm wearing tonight. But my recommendation to my own kids, always dress for the next level, because you want to look like you're preparing yourself for the next level of whatever in your company. So always look around and see how they're dressed at the next level above you. Always dress to that level. So never down dress at the workplace, always up dress. Yes, sir.
And I think on that point as well, could you maybe say a few things about body language and just how they present themselves, how someone will present themselves? I know as a hiring manager, that's something that I've always looked at, is like how the person physically presents themselves, how they walk, the confidence, all those different kinds of things.
So there's a technique that you use when you're doing a media interview to sit on the edge of the chair. And you keep your one foot in front of the other, sitting on the front edge of the chair. And the reason for that is pretty simple. That a pretty harsh interview, like somebody from 60 Minutes, they're going to try to maybe lean forward and point. Well, what do you mean by that? And your natural reaction is going to be, if you're sitting back in the chair, it's like you're pinned to the chair. So you want your posture. You want your posture to be erect. You want to be kind of sitting forward so that your weight is kind of on your feet, almost like you're ready to stand up. And that's kind of a good posture when you're sitting in an interview. You don't want to slouch. You don't want to relax and cross your legs, put your arm over the back of the chair. You want to be sitting up straight, attentive, and prepared. Almost like you're ready for somebody to throw a punch at you, and you're ready to evade the punch. It's just good posture. It's really a good point, Father. I'm glad you mentioned that. So it just shows respect. So that I respect you by sitting here erect, and I'm not slouched. I don't feel so comfortable that I'm just going to be hanging out with you. No, you're not hanging out with them. You're trying to get a job, and that's the important thing. Never forget that. But last thing to remember, what is it? Smile. Because you show your personality when you smile. Smile with your eyes. I think we're about up with our time. I'm happy to stick around for some other questions. Again, the offer's there. If anybody needs some one-on-one counseling or work on your resumes, let me know. Happy to stick around, come after dinner, after one of these. But anyway, I appreciate your time, and hopefully it helps you get the job.